Hi, this is Lorraine again, and if you will give me just a few minutes to clear, center, and balance my energy, we can get started. So, I'm not sure where to start, so I think I'm going to start with just kind of an explanation or a description of kind of how my days go. And it'll just be a second, and just to understand, like, I want to explain to you that every time I close my eyes, practically, something happens, a vision happens. And when that happens, they're not really visions, it's a shift to a different plane of existence that shows me where we are. And in these moments, the Native American elder is very important. He's always here to my left. He's always stepping with me in whatever direction I step into. And almost literally every time I close my eyes, I see something. And I don't write everything down. Some of this stuff is very personal and it's meant for me, for my personal life and my personal relationships and interactions with people that aren't part of the big picture of what's happening on this planet. Excuse me, something's tickling my nose. And other things are. So what I share with you is the big picture. I think sometimes in my notes, sometimes I might stumble across some individual things or in my journal. I try not to go into that stuff because it's not relatable to individuals, but if I accidentally go into it, then I just go with it. It's meant to be. So I'm just going to start with every time I close my eyes, I just have these visions come, or these realities placed before me, and I just write them down. Messages come in through clairaudience also, so I hear information that comes in, and there's some of that in here also. And so I'm just going to go over everything, the most important things that I feel that happened this week. Okay? So we will start with April 12th. I laid down and I went into meditation. Immediately, the Native American elder was there. I walked to the open space I was at the end of the last video. So at the end of the last video, I was just in an open space. There was nothing there but soil. There was nothing growing. And I just sat and connected with the earth. At the end of the video, I said I felt like I needed to end and just go and meditate. So when I did go to meditate, I was back in that open space. So I was back in that open space at the end of my last video. The soil was dark, not light in color, or packed like clay. It was dark like potting soil. It was loose also. It looked fertile and moist. I bent down and grabbed a handful. I held it in my hand. I rubbed it between my fingers, and then I looked up. There were sprouts growing all over the ground, across the soil, and up the hills. I reached down and grabbed more soil and brought it up to my face and smelled it. It smelled so good. I rubbed it between my fingers. I looked up, again, sprouts all over the ground, across the soil, up the hills. It was so fresh, so healthy. When I brought my hand down and I looked up, I was on a farm in Texas. I just knew it. It was in Texas. It was a farm I had seen often over the last few weeks. So over the last, I would say, month or so, I keep on having this vision of a farm in Texas with a small house with a couple that has two boys living in the house, but they're an older couple. They're not their children. I think it might be their grandchildren. It was owned and run by a couple. They were in their 60s. There were two more people on the farm. They were grandchildren who lived with them. They are about to lose their farm. The soil in my hand was now from their farm. So the second handful that I grabbed was the soil from their farm. Fresh, fragrant, fertile. I was confused because it is the Native Americans who will be the first to reap because of their faith and commitment to God, or the creator of all things. After sitting with this for a moment, it was explained that these were good people who always remain part of and respected their community. They will be the next to reap what they sow. Their lands will once again be fertile. The food they produce once again will be beautiful, healthy, fuel for the soul. They will be able to love and cultivate whatever crops they choose. The farmers are next. So it showed me the transition from the Native Americans reaping the benefits of their commitment to God and to Mother Earth, and bringing forth creation and a rebirth of Mother Earth. The next will be the farmers, who also love the soil and love Mother Earth from a different perspective. So 4:14, the farmers will be the next to experience the gift of creation afforded humanity by God, the creator of all things. Those who tend to the fuel that sustains the physical self, the farmers, ranchers, horticulturalists, homesteader, sharecropper, those individuals and others like them will reap the benefits provided by divinity, God, the creator of all things. Our bodies are the temples that house our souls. They should be treated as such. This makes our farmers, horticulturalists, ranchers, an important part of the paradigm that tends to the soul. The Native American elder, this is a separate meditation, same day. The Native American elder calls me into the circle. I do not want to go because of the sadness, alienation, frustration I feel. Create from the love you feel in your heart. This is the Native American speaking to me. The sadness stems from there. The loneliness stems from there. The alienation comes from the universal love you carry in your heart. Find perspective for that. Connect with the perspective for that. You know it. It is innately you. You know the loneliness you feel is a product of the unconditional love you carry in every part of you. You know the sadness you feel comes from the unconditional love that is you. You know the alienation is a product of the unconditional love you share. Therefore, all these emotions are at their root love. Therefore, you manifest from love. Every emotion you feel comes from the profound love you feel for the world around you. Always walk into the circle of creation, for you are love, and therefore can only manifest from this place. You are blessed. He is blessed. Live a blessed life. It is your birthright. Come into the circle of creation. Your farmers have been blessed. It will start in Texas and move out from there. These farmers should support one another. Move outside the paradigms that have been created. Work as a unifying force. The people will support them, not the corporations. They want to support the small family farmers. They must work together to get their names out there. Work with the independent truckers to get their products out there. Teach the drivers what they do not know. Help them to be successful, and all will succeed. You are on your way. (4:16). As I see the sprouts bursting through the barren soil on the reservation, I know creation has begun there. It is not for us, it is for the faithful, the Native Americans, the indigenous people of Mother Earth. This gift is meant for the indigenous people of North America alone. In the past, the Westerners, the USA, has given the Native American people land, reservations, which were meant to be a sovereign territory, or the Native Americans were led to believe these lands were sovereign territory. Then the US government, their agents, would find something they wanted on those lands, take the land, and move the tribe. The gifts being presented to the Native American people are theirs alone to do with what they choose. Any violation of this edict will be followed by a consequence. To do so is to disrespect, violate, disregard the sacred gift and the will of the divine. That which you put out is what you will receive in kind. Such an act is a message clearly stating your place in the Cepheus constellation. Child and adult alike are bound by this proclamation. You must teach your children respect, boundaries, and accountability. And so the movie Jeremiah Johnson kept coming in, and a friend of mine I grew up with actually sent me something, and I chatted him up about it, and he's like, sent me something related to Jeremiah Johnson, the film, and he said that was one of his favorite movies. So since it kept on coming into my field, I watched it. And there's a scene in there where Jeremiah takes a group of soldiers and a preacher across a mountain pass, He's a guide. He's guiding them. And it turns out there is a Crow burial ground in this passage. And so he says, I'm not going to go. And they kind of goad him into going. So they end up crossing the burial ground, a sacred area, sacred land for the Crow people. And so they cross, and seemingly seems okay. But then when he's on his way home, he realizes there's something wrong, and he goes home. And I guess I should give you a spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie. But he goes home, and his wife and the child he's raising were murdered. And so this was a consequence of his decision to dishonor the Native American people and their sacred lands. And so the feeling as this message came to me, which was through clairaudience, was if you violate the edict, the proclamation, that the gift of creation that's being bestowed upon to the Native American people, if you violate that, there will be a consequence. But this consequence will not be implemented by the Native American people. This is a consequence that will be implemented by our divine creator. And this is a function of the law of attraction. What you put out is what you receive in kind. So if you show disrespect, dishonor for this proclamation, then you will receive that in kind. So that what you put out is what you will receive. The golden rule, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The same thing. So this isn't God punishing per se. This is you dishonoring and therefore receiving dishonor in return. And also, there's another thing that came, like Thanksgiving. Okay, so Thanksgiving was a time when the Westerners first came to North America, and the Native Americans sat and had a meal with them. That is where Thanksgiving comes from, is the Native Americans greeting and sharing a meal with them. It's like welcoming someone into your home. And then the Westerners went on to pretty much slaughter the Native Americans, and in their belief of manifest destiny. So I'm bringing that up because there's more that will come later as far as visions and stuff that came in. But we were honored and we were welcomed in, and then we just decided that we were going to take all the stuff that we wanted, the Westerners wanted. That's not going to happen again. And this gift of creation that's being bestowed upon the Native Americans is theirs, and we have no right to it, and we will not be allowed, no Westerners will be allowed to go in and take anything. If you choose to do that, whether you are a grown-up or a child, you will have a consequence. And it is the parents' obligation to teach their children respect. And it's a parent's obligation to teach their children boundaries. It's a parent's obligation to tell that child, no, that's not okay. And if you are not willing to do that, then you, as well as your child, will reap the consequences of your arrogance or your entitlement. This is a huge issue in our society today. And this is boundaries that are being set. And you have to honor the boundaries. If you do not honor the boundaries, there are consequences. There will be consequences. The Native Americans are first. The indigenous people are first. They are being honored and revered by the divine. All must show proper respect. 4:16, sorry. The gifts afforded the Native Americans are theirs alone. Any violation of this edict will be met with a consequence. Sharing of these gifts, these resources, must be agreed upon by all tribes. No one tribe can separate itself from the others. There is one among all who makes the final decision. He will determine when the timing is right, no other. The most revered elder of each tribe knows who this individual is. This individual of the people must be honored by all the tribes. So each tribe has a most revered elder, and these elders together will discuss when it's time to share the abundance that they have been given or been provided. But there is one among all that has the final decision, because you can't give from an empty cup. The cup must be full before you can give. Another message that came through while this message was coming in is that some, even among the Native Americans, there's good and bad in all groups. Some of them have lost their way, and some may use this abundance to benefit themselves or to manipulate the situation. Those Native Americans are also going to be held accountable if they share or they give away what is not theirs to give away. First, the whole tribe must be cared for. The most revered elder with all the other most revered elders come together, and they decide as a group when all the Native American tribes as a unit will start to give from their abundance, and not before that. Anybody who decides to give away what is not theirs alone to give away will suffer the consequences, just like any other Westerner who comes in and takes what is not theirs. That needs to be made very clear. I closed my eyes. The Native American elder was there. We walked into the circle of creation together. As soon as I stepped in, I could see my arms. I had a white flowing gown on. As I looked out, I could see a large open space with a beautiful green lawn, blue sky. There were groupings of people. I quickly realized these groupings represented different communities across the planet. They were filled with joy, love, and happiness. Even though they were standing in different groups, they represented a unification as a planet. So I walked out. I walked into the circle of creation. As soon as I stepped in, I saw my arms were out like this, and I could see like a breeze and white flowing, like chiffon fabric just flowing off of my arms. And the Native American gentleman was right there to my left, and then out in front of me, just a huge, what I would describe as just a big lawn, just grass area. It was huge. And then from the horizon up, just blue sky. And then different groupings of people just engaging one another. And not large, like family size, not like hundreds of people, but just each group was a small, like the size of a family. 4, 6, 8, 10 people, somewhere around there. Each group represents a continent, country, community. The lawn represents Mother Earth. So it is a unification of countries, continents, countries, and communities on Mother Earth. That's what it represents. It's a metaphor. This is today. I don't think I put the date. What's today? Is today the 18th? I think today's the 18th. Yeah, I didn't put the date. Oh, actually, I read it on the 16th, but I wrote it today. So I read an article. Okay, I read an article that Governor Whitmer of Michigan expanded the mask mandate to children as young as 2 years old during gatherings. My first thought was, what the heck? What's going on? My second reaction was laughter. I just started laughing hysterically. And because, first of all, it's absurd to put a mask on a 2-year-old. But secondly, in my opinion, no children have died from COVID. So I laughed because, first, after my response of disgust, I almost immediately realized how childish this negative polarity has become. They were never going to hold on to Mother Earth. Now that they know they are not holding on to Earth, they are trying to take as many souls as possible with them to the Cepheus constellation. I had commented in my last video about the 2 little girls I saw on the bus with masks on. A toddler and another child about 4 years old. I also commented that it is their parents who will deal with the karmic consequences of those actions. Now this governor is forcing parents to mask their children. This still remains true. Any physical deficits in the brain development, social emotional consequences experienced by the child will be carried by the parents, politicians, their agents, and masters. So parents in their willingness to conform, even at the detriment of their children, will have to deal with the consequences of that action. If the children have cognitive delays or whatever consequences result from that, lack of oxygen, the social emotional consequences of separation, and fear that's being instilled in them, those consequences are a result of the parents projecting their fear onto their children, the politicians who are instilling that fear in the parents, and their masters who are ordering them, guiding them to instill this fear and force mask mandates. And those people who are enforcing those mask mandates, they carry the karmic consequences of those actions. And this goes to accountability. People need to be accountable for their actions. The same way if you go into and steal from the Native Americans' abundance that will be coming to them, you are dishonoring them, and as a result you have to be accountable for that action. You can't say, oh, I was hungry, or it was sitting there so I just took it. You don't have any right to that, and therefore you have no right to take it, and therefore you will be held accountable for that decision. I would never do anything to hurt my kids. I would leave and go somewhere else before I did that, and that is my choice. And so I will deal with the consequences of not putting a mask on my child, or telling them no, they can't take that fruit or that vegetable or whatever's growing over on the other side of that fence. I will deal with the consequences of denying them that, because it's more important for them to understand that they are not entitled to whatever they want. Those boundaries are very important, and we all have that. We can't say I need that or I want that, so I'm going to take it. It's there, I should be able to take it. That's not how this works. The reason why I found this laughable is because the next vision I had was my son saying, "Mommy, come find me." He would hide behind the drapes and his legs would be showing from the knees down. The mind of a child is so endearing. This negative polarity is acting like a child that needs a big fat timeout. Sometimes mom just needs to set that child aside and give him or her a time to think about what they have done. Cepheus is where this timeout will take place. So basically, now that this negative polarity understands, this negative energy understands that it's not taking the earth, they're doing everything in their power to take as many souls with them to Cepheus. So they just keep on tightening down, holding on tighter, just trying to hold on to as many things as they possibly can, because they're not going down without a fight. And as they do this, they're instilling more fear into people, more insecurity into people, and getting them to conform to whatever they're trying to get them to conform to. And as people follow that and buy into that, they become part of that negative polarity, that energy, that mindset, and that moves them in that direction of the negative polarity, and then moves them into the direction of Cepheus. So anybody who may have, so they're shifting their consciousness to fear, insecurity, and into that negative polarity. So the more people they have on Cepheus, the more people they have to control. And it's very childish, because the people on top who are in control of everything and are oppressing everybody else, this is their mindset. So if they're going to Cepheus, the Cepheus constellation, to incarnate, they want as many minions as they possibly can when they get there, because they believe they'll still be on top. Well, at least if I go there, I'm going to be the top of the food chain. That's not necessarily the case. It's just going to be a different world. It's going to be different from this world. But nevertheless, they're working from this paradigm, this place here on Earth, and this mindset. You know, if I go there, then I'm gonna rule there, and I'm gonna bring as many people with me as I possibly can. Very, very childish thinking. And sometimes when kids act up, all you can do is put them in a timeout. And it makes me think of, I shouldn't say that. There's a girl in my neighborhood. She could definitely hold her own, boys or girls. And she had a child very young. And this little boy, if he didn't get what he wanted in the store, "Mommy, I want that. Mommy, I want that," he would literally hold his breath until he passed out. I mean, you want to talk about willful. Stubborn and willful. He wanted that thing, and if he didn't get it, he was going to hold his breath until she gave in. She never gave in. Didn't matter, because the answer was no, right? No, period. That's it. And so right now, what this negative polarity is being told is no, period. They're holding their breath. They're kicking and screaming. They want what they want. The answer is no. And so eventually, you know, when he goes home, this little boy goes home, he's going to have to sit in the corner and think about what he did and why he did it, because his behavior was completely inappropriate and unacceptable. And so he's going to go sit in his timeout until he figures out what he did, why he did it, and why it was inappropriate. That's what that's what's happening to this negative polarity. It's going to Cepheus. They will be incarnating there. They're going to sit in their timeout for a while. They're going to have that time to figure out what they did, why they did it, and why it was inappropriate, and why it's time to create change in their life. So like mom's giving them a big fat timeout. And it's just part of existence. It's part of life. You know, whenever we do something wrong, we need to figure out what we did wrong and why we shouldn't do it again, so we can come back to center, come back to a place of love and light, compassion, kindness for one another, and live from that place, live from the place of the divine. Okay, goodness and kindness and tolerance, all the things that we all want in our life. We all want it. We all want it. Nobody wants to live in this negativity. Nobody wants to be in negativity. We all want to live in harmony. That is what we all want. So when these energies, when this negative polarity, these souls incarnate on Cepheus, they will not have access to the depth and breadth of emotion that we have been gifted here on Earth. They have proven it is beyond their ability to value and appreciate from a place of unconditional love. So they are unable to understand and value unconditional love and what that affords us. Our ability to create from this world is beyond anything ever experienced in the universe, our universe. From love, it is exquisite, ethereal, incomparable. What we create from love on this world is exquisite, ethereal, and it's incomparable to anything else created in the universe. Because humanity, what makes this world unique is we have the full depth and breadth of emotions. And what that affords us is from this place, from that depth and breadth of emotions, we have the full depth and breadth of love, unconditional love. And from that place, we can create anything. We can create more beauty in this universe than any other world. And that's why all eyes are on us. And that's why all eyes are watching as we transcend. From a negative place, it can be equally destructive, catastrophic, fatal. Therefore, the negative polarity is being purged from this world. We are moving to balance, to beauty, to unconditional love, to the divine self. So this is what transcendence is, revelation is, this separation of the positive and the negative polarity, and moving us, those who will inherit this world, to a place of balance. Because from this world, the ability to create and what we can create will benefit everyone on this planet, in this galaxy, in the solar system, in this galaxy, in the universe. Over time, it will benefit. It's like the ripple in the water, throwing the stone and the ripple in the water. Eventually, we will benefit everyone from the divine, from this divine self, from this divine place. And it's because of that ability to create from love, that we need to separate the positive and the negative, because the negative polarity can be equally destructive. And we don't want that ripple effect of the negative polarity out in the universe. That is not in the divine plan. And so that is what tribulation is and revelation is. Tribulation is what we must go through to reveal the negative polarity, and therefore as it reveals itself, it moves to another place. So those who come from the place of love and light will move into will stay on earth and become beautiful creators in the universe. Those who move in the negative polarity are not ready for that type of responsibility and must go to Cepheus to incarnate. They're not going to be given the same depth and breadth of emotions, because it's clearly they're not able to handle that. And therefore they will be incarnating on a different world with different skills and abilities, and they will evolve in a different way. But that will be part of their learning process of evolution of the soul. And maybe at some point they'll be able to incarnate on another world that has a greater depth and breadth of emotions, or maybe even eventually come back here. But that is, I don't know, that's up to the individual energy, the individual soul, how they choose to grow and change and evolve. So if you give me just a second, I'm just going to sit for a minute and see if anything else comes to me. And so as soon as I close my eyes, the Native American elder is standing right here, and he's just applauding, and we just stand next to each other and we look out, and there's just space. And so we're in front of Earth. We're not on top of Earth. We're in front of Earth, and we're looking out, and we just see all the possibilities for our existence, the existence of Earth, the beings incarnating on Earth. It's just about possibilities. That's all we're seeing is just possibilities. And he just says, everything will be all right. Everything will be all right. Okay, that's it. Thank you.